All right, everybody, thank you for tuning into the Adam Messer Show, and I hope you enjoy the show. I talk with authors, artists, and entertainers, and today's episode is brought to you by Valhalla Books, valhallabooks.com. Their inaugural anthology is out called The Devil's Due. You can check it out at valhallabooks.com. All right, welcome, everybody, and thank you for tuning in today. You are listening to the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, and my special guest today is a very skilled and talented young poet named Jayla Lawton, and she goes by Jaybird. Welcome to the show, Jaybird. Jayla, how are you?
Thank you for having me, Adam. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm excited to have you on the show today. And just a little background, everybody. If you've been to any of my word beat poetry events that we've done the last year or so, year and a half, you've probably met Jayla. She was at our word beat poetry event, and she was also at our Savannah Authors Expo. So you've probably seen her, perform with her poetry. Jayla, do you mind giving everybody just a little introduction, a little bit background about yourself, please?
Sure. So I've been doing spoken word since my freshman year of high school with the Deep Center. I'm still affiliated with them as well. Haven't really been doing as much because 2020 has just been, just crazy. But 2019, I feel like, was the biggest year for my performing, at least. I have competed in Brave New Voices, the international poetry competition for youth across the globe. I have done regional competitions. I competed with people from Tampa, people from Jacksonville, and just local young artists in Savannah, Georgia here. And I really love what I do. And yeah, I guess that's about it.
I think that's really fascinating too, and I feel like you are a very interesting person and poet. You always have a great performance when you do your poetry. And I know that takes a lot of practice and effort, and so I'm pretty excited to have you on the show here today. I want to do a shout out to everybody because this is like our last show of the year. So thank.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's gonna be New Year's next Friday, so.
Oh, wow. Time is just going by right now.
I know this year's been like a decade of years, in my opinion. It's been crazy.
So we closing it off right now.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a cool thing. I love poetry. When I was a kid, I used to write a lot of poetry, and then I went to a show last year. And it was, I hadn't written any poetry as an adult really. And, Brendan, Townsend, I think it's, gosh, I'm probably not even getting his last name correct, but Brendan, was here in town, and I met him and Melanie Goldie and, Tony, Morris. Yeah, Tony Morris. They did like a little poetry tour. And they were right down there at East Shaver Booksellers, and I went home and I wrote like 50 poems in like a couple of days, and then I put out my first poetry chapbook, and I was like, wow, this is so much fun, and that's what prompted me to start doing the word beat poetry thing, because I was like, well, I've got a radio show, and I'd like to have a platform where local artists and poets can come on the show, and you're like the first poet I've had on in a while. I've like probably since the summer.
The summer?
Yeah, it's probably been.
I know you mentioned Melanie, right? Has she been on the show already?
Yeah, Melanie's been on a couple different times, and we had a word beat poetry. We've had a word beat poetry episode. We actually had a couple of word beat poetry episodes, and so I'm pretty excited to have you on today. And I'm planning for next year, when it's safe. I'm also already trying to plan out some poetry events with some local establishments. So I'm hoping, when everything kind of, is safe to go back. We were hoping it to be this year, but things happen. So I'm looking forward to next year. and I'm looking forward to everything kind of getting back on track. But of course, we want it to be safe, and we want because I mean, like poetry is one of those things. Like you can read poetry and it's great, but man, when you see somebody like yourself perform,
it just brings life to the piece.
oh
Like
man,
you're actually in there in the moment.
Oh my gosh, and you can feel
That's
it.
really what I love about poetry.
Yes, and you are really very like I just love the way that you jump into, like you just walk right into it. So can you talk a little bit more about like how you kind of get in that moment and how you just open it up and share that with people? Because I mean, like your poetry is very emotional and very touching.
Well, when I first started doing spoken word, I promise you, I was not even. I was so afraid to even, look people in the eye and everything. Like even do hand gestures, just bring life to the piece. I would just be standing there, hands by my lap, just looking down. Even though I might have like the piece memorized, that's another thing too. Having it memorized so you can actually, act it out or like just like like I said, bring life to it. So when I was first starting out, I was really shy about it. Like I could write my whole life on a piece of paper, but when it comes to actually performing it and like telling people this is who I am in this moment, this is a part of my life, I'm giving you a part of me right now, and that'll always be with you, even though you might not remember it in that moment. I'm going to remember that, So I feel like my awakening-ish kind of happened. I feel like it was like maybe my third year performing. That was like 2019. And I don't know, it's just once you see other people be comfortable with sharing their life on a stage and then getting right off and like, just acting like nothing happened, basically. You're acting like, I don't even know. It's hard to describe, honestly. It's just, it's almost like it's not real. Like you have to go back to that point in your life when you felt that way, or when if you're still feeling that way, you still feel that way. But it's like it's indescribable, honestly.
I kind of follow you there because that's how I feel too. Like for example, the poems that I wrote, I've got another book that I'm working on, and I'm calling it Songs of Savannah, and I've written like a bunch of poems, but picking the ones out for this book, it's different too because these different emotions and these feelings and these thoughts and experiences, and you write all these things down, and then sometimes they're discombobulated and they're disjointed. Sometimes they're they just kind of flow together. Sometimes sometimes I'll be writing and I'm like, oh, this is just utter garbage, and I don't like it. Yeah. And some of them never see the light of day other than, that I wrote it, but I had to get it out. I had to get it off of my, off of me and out of me. But yeah, I agree with you. It's almost like, to me, the closest thing I can describe is like when you listen to a really good song and you feel those chill bumps, and you
like the goosebumps,
yeah, and you can you can hear the words, but you feel the words. That's what it reminds me of. Watching the poets and being able to share it, because I don't do the performance poetry. I'm more of a reader with it, but I love like the last one we did over at East Shaver. I mean, we had a huge crowd. I mean, it was great because.
I remember there was this one poet over the summer. I was part of the some of my Florida poets. I forgot what his name was, but there was something that he said after he performed his piece. He said, "Words don't matter because you feel what I'm saying," and that stuck with me ever since. Because, like you said, it might be trash. You might think it's garbage at first, but once you come back and refine it, it might be fine to you. It might be fine to the people. But the feeling that you put, your intention behind what you wrote is the biggest thing. They're going to know how you feel about your piece depending on the way you perform it, Like if it's a sad piece and it takes you back to a certain point in your life, it's like maybe like it's a very traumatic experience. the way you perform that piece is you going back to that moment, and people can see you in that moment.
And
so
you know, and
it doesn't always have to be so theatrical. It can just be you being you on stage.
Right. That's what I was going to say too. I think like there's some folks that they will never read any of their stuff in front of somebody else, and that's okay. Because for example, with Shakespeare, you can look at Shakespearean actors who are reading words that were written 500 and 600 years ago, and the way that their emotions and they bring that character to life through those words, that's what poetry reminds me of, is being able to relate to another person through language and through sharing our story that we can translate, time and place, and we can connect with each other's humanity. And that's one of the things I love about it.
Whenever my friends, like my non-artist friends, whenever they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I do poetry, like spoken word. They always just go back to the Shakespearean era, all of that. But no, poetry has evolved. Poetry is much more. I'm not down in Shakespeare or anything, but poetry is much more than that. It's almost like people don't even realize that preaching, preaching in churches, that is a part of spoken word, because you see the pauses that they do, the inflection behind
the cadence
their words
of
and everything.
Yeah, the speech, yeah.
It's so much that goes in the spoken word. Even our conversation right now, there are high points and low points where, I'm being serious for one moment, like the intention I put behind my words, the passion I'm putting into this conversation right now is a part of spoken word. Almost everything is poetry, I believe. So
I think language and communication and us having a conversation, for example, I feel like that is the best way to connect with other people, and being able to read someone's work or listen to them, performing a poem or whatever. Like you said earlier, I feel like it does give someone an insight. It's like a little window into your soul, They get to see okay, well it's like a Polaroid, it's like a picture. So you get to see this, caption or this screenshot or this, this moment in my life that I'm sharing with you. And sometimes it might just be purely from your imagination. It doesn't have to necessarily be, from a life experience. It could just be something that you're imagining, that your imagination is connecting something together, and you want to share that connection with someone else and say, hey, you know what? I like this idea, or I don't like this idea.
I remember earlier this year, it was like in October, actually. I was about to say earlier this year, but it was a couple months ago.
October is like 6 years ago, and 2020
honestly,
days.
But one of my friends, well, he goes by his stage name is Two Benji. He actually has an album coming out in January. But we were having a conversation one day, and I remember, I don't know what the context was or anything, but he asked me if I found out why I'm doing this. Like, why do I write, basically? And I couldn't answer him for a minute, because 2020 has just been so much. It's almost like I lost sight of who I was for a minute. So some days ago, I was actually thinking, I was like, why do I write? Like, am I writing for me? Am I writing for the audience? Am I writing for healing? Am I writing for growth? Like, what am I writing for? And I don't know. I just really had to think about that. And I think I've narrowed it down to why I write. And I'm pretty sure it is I'm sure it is because I write so I can say the things I can't say in day-to-day conversations. Like,
I think that's a very powerful.
Like, I might have a dream that might change my whole perspective. I just might wake up one day. I might be happy when I fall asleep, but then have like some sort of nightmare or something, and wake up and people are wondering what's wrong, but you can't really articulate that because they're not in the dream with you.
Right.
So you have to set that scene for them, paint the picture for them so they can understand,
Yeah, and that can be difficult too. Everybody, thank you for tuning in today. This is the Adam Messer Show, And I'm your host, Adam Messer, and my special guest today is Jayla Lawton, and she goes by Jaybird. It's her performance name. And you're listening to us on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And I agree with you. The words in poetry, or the word, any form of storytelling, because poetry is a story. It's a way to be able to relay those thoughts and feelings and emotions, and be able to share that. And I think that's a great thing that you have discovered in yourself, of your why, not the what, because the what, the what's come and go, but the why, that's what drives you to move forward, because your poetry is going to evolve. I mean, like, I'm sure if you look back to when you first started doing it, your poetry, and you've changed, you've grown a lot as a person. Even like when I first met you, you've grown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about storytelling.
The other day too.
Well, tell me more about that. What were you thinking?
I think I was recording one of my poems actually some weeks or about a month ago now. And I was looking for some soundscapes to add on to like the audio. And I usually when I record my poems, I do it from my phone. Like, this would be when I was working, that'll be like my second time recording, like, ever, like, professionally.
Oh, wow.
But like I said, when I usually record, it's just from my phone. So I have like a bunch of drafts, like over 100 of maybe like one poem just going over and over and over. And I go and play it back and see, like, oh, do I like how it sounds right here? No, I don't like that. I'll do it different this time. But I went back to 2019, and I found, I feel like you've heard this piece, When the Jaybird Sings.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I was like, I started cringing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I sound like that? Like, I've just grown so much. Like, I can't see myself performing that piece the same way should I have to be in a situation where I have to perform it again. So even just like from a year or some months back, like, I can just go back and be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that the same way. I can maybe try something different here. Like, even my old poetry coach, Marquise Williams, he also works for the Deep Center. He was telling us that, like, we shouldn't get too comfortable in performing our pieces the same way. And I was like, I'm going to still do that, though. But now I see what he's saying. Like, I don't like the way I sound right here anymore. Maybe I want to try something different. I want to give the piece a different sense of life,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important, that is an important part of not just performance, but just being yourself, because we practice different things. You're going to say things, or you're going to, the story you're telling yourself in your head or whatever. And as you get older, and as you mature, as you go through life or whatever, this is for everybody. And you're going to change, So one of the things I see, which is a common thing with artists, is that they will, let's just say they want to make a painting, for example. And in their mind's eye, they see the way that they want the painting. Okay? And they paint this painting, and it does not turn out like the way that they wanted it to. Right? So, for example, with your performance, it might not turn out the way you wanted it to. So you go over and you record it 100 times, which is cool, because that means that you're working on it. There comes a point where you, as an artist, have to say, this is good enough, and I'm going to move on from it, because you have taste. You're not trying to settle. It's not settling, but it's like, okay, well, this piece is good enough. I need to move on from it. I need to grow as a person and move on from, that performance or that song or whatever it is. And then the next time, like, with that Jaybird Sings one, the next time that you have to perform it, you're not going to be the same person that performed it 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever.
Exactly.
You're just not, and I think, I feel like people who are artistic or creative, they connect with that side of change more readily than folks who are not used to, creating art or trying to, put stuff out there for folks, and it all comes back to your audience. Who's your audience? Is it just you? Is it your mom? Is it your family? Is it, like on stage, is it, who's your audience? Who are you doing this thing for? So I feel like it's really important. I feel like that for me as well, I deal with the same thing. I look back at some of the stuff that I wrote and I'm like, not so much my cup of tea now, but it was who I was at that moment, in that moment.
Exactly.
And I can't say,
like,
well,
no denying that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I could say, well, that's who I was then. And, my tastes have changed, but I'm not going to divorce myself from then. I'm not going to, say, oh, well, it was just whatever. Because I look at it like, oh, well, wow, how much have I grown since then? How much have I learned since then? But and I think your coach had a good point. If you are doing the same thing over and over in the same exact way over and over, and you never change, you're never going to grow.
Exactly. You're stagnant.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's boring. Like,
yeah, it is. It is.
Switch it up some. Try something new.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the variety of life, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, I understand, like, there are, like, certain points where, especially this year, I keep on mentioning this year, but this year has been a year.
It's been a decade of years. I keep saying it's a decade of years because I swear this is the longest year ever.
Oh, my gosh. Like, it's finally about to end. Like, geez. But I understand that there are those moments because I've had those moments a couple of. It doesn't even feel like. It feels like you might feel like you meant. What am I trying to say? You might feel that you are changing, but to other people looking from the outside in, you're not. And you need that other point of view to tell you. You need some discipline, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to tell, like, if you're going to, like, keep on convincing yourself that you are changing when you're not, then how are you going to grow, Yeah,
that's very, very wise. I agree with you, and I mean, I laugh and I joke around with people that we all like to drink our own tea, but it's one of those things where we can get caught up in our own story. We can get caught up in our own thing. And, if we're not growing and we're not changing, then we do become stagnant. And then sometimes it's like, you think like last year's thing, like, I know it sounds funny because of trends, but last year's thing, and I'm not talking about 2019 versus 2020. I mean, just like, anything that was like really, new and cool, a year ago, it's not now. You know what I mean? And it's not growth and it's not change if you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like if you can't accept, I feel like everybody needs someone to tell them about themselves at least like 5 times in their life. Like,
why 5?
Seriously.
Why 5?
5.
Why 5? Why 5?
To be honest, that was a random number, but
well, it's a good one. I like that.
It has
like,
to be more than one time.
Say that again, though. Say that again so everyone can hear it again. I love that.
I said, to be honest, that was just a random number.
No, I'm talking about you.
Oh, okay.
You feel like everybody should be told about themselves at least 5 times in their life. That's like so cool.
Yeah, everybody needs someone to tell them about themselves at least 5 times. And if you get offended every one of those times, then you need something. Like, you need to ask yourself, be introspective for a minute.
Yep.
Like, why am I offended?
Yeah.
Am I offended because they're right, or am I offended because they're wrong?
I'm laughing because like that I've had that happen to me, and like it's just like you have if you have a good friend that will check you on stuff, that is like the best ever. That. I'm not talking about somebody just just trying to knock you down. I'm just talking about they just kind of check you on like your nonsense, and you're like, okay, yeah, maybe you're a little right. I don't like it, but you're right.
Honestly, my mom did this to me yesterday. She's probably listening right now, too. She did this to me
Mom.
yesterday, and I just got quiet. I just got quiet. I was like, you know what? She right. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm just keep my mouth shut because I can't even say that she's wrong.
I'm laughing because it happens to me too, Jayla. I'm laughing. Like, honestly, I have a couple of people that will do that for me, and like, it is so funny because like I'll get carried away and I'll think like, you know, all the other, and then they'll give me like a little check and I'm like, I can't even get mad. I can't even get mad with them because they're right and they're telling me the truth. And like most people, it's so crazy, but most people, you know, they want to tell you nice things. They want to be like, yeah. They're not going to tell you, you know, when, you know, they think you're making a mistake, because that's just not how people are, you know, unless they're like a little hater. And then even like little haters, I love sometimes when a little hater gets caught up and they tell you about yourself, because they're saying something out of hate and spite, but they're trying to, you know, cut you down with something that they feel like is true. They're not lying to you. They're just doing it in a way that is not very pretty. You know what I mean?
Would you really consider them haters, though, if they're telling you the truth about yourself? Or
Well,
just people looking at you?
I would consider some of these people haters because they just don't like you. They're jealous and they don't want to see you succeed, so they might say something or do something just because they don't like you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
there
they're
are.
not, like, supporting you at all. Like,
Yeah. There are people out there who just genuinely will not like you just because they just don't like you, and it's nothing you did, and nothing, you know, you can't control that. And the ones that really kill me are the ones that they try to act like they're your friends, but they're not.
Exactly. Like, for what? You did all that work. Like, you changed your heart.
I'm like, dude.
Like, I feel special.
I'm like, come on, man. Like, yeah, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't like me. It just, you know, don't pretend like you like me and then try to pull the rug out from under me. Yeah. But I feel like, going back to the poetry thing, you know, when that happens.
We got all off track.
Yeah. Like, you know, honestly, I think most people who are poets are very sensitive people. And, you know, not that we feel more or we're deeper than other people and we think deeper, not any of that nonsense. But I feel like, you know, we are sensitive people. We are maybe kind of hyper aware of our surroundings and the people that are around us. And, you know, like little subtle gestures can, you know, mean so much more because of our perception of things. You know, being hyper perceptive to things. You're like, you know, you kind of, I know I have to do this. I don't know if you have to do this or not, but I got a feeling that you probably do. But you kind of have to check yourself sometimes. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Am I overthinking this, or did I overfeel this with somebody, or, you know, did this actually mean anything? You know, what do they mean when they said, oh yeah, have a nice day, when they actually said have a nice day? You know, and you're like, what does that even?
Did she mean that? I don't like her tone. Did she mean
that? Yeah. Or that little eye, little eye cut, like a little side eye. You're like, wait a minute, who are you telling to have a nice day? What do you mean by that? I'm like, oh my gosh. And then sometimes I have to just like let it go. But I'll give you an example of writing that really helped me. My friend told me about this, and I know this has been around for a long time, but I've never done it before. Okay. So just talking about like recent stuff. My friend was telling me that I should write a letter to these people that have, you know, kind of messed me up and messed me over and done some stuff that they shouldn't have done. And he was like, just write this letter and then burn them. And I was like, okay. I didn't want to burn it, but I wrote these letters out to a couple people. I did this yesterday. Okay. I wrote these letters out and I just ripped them in like little shreds and threw it away. And I feel like with poetry, it's like that too, because like I'm writing it, even though I'm going to share it, I'm writing it to get it off of my chest or off my mind. You know, do you feel that way too?
I do. That's why I had to ask myself, why. But now that you said that, now I'm thinking, like, with each piece that I do, each piece doesn't always have the same intention. You know, this piece might be strictly to, you know, just appeal to the audience. Like, you know, I might get a gig performing for, you know, maybe like a children's Boys and Girls Club or something like that.
Right.
And after write for an audience of maybe fifth graders. These fifth graders aren't going to really even understand like when the cage bird sings piece, you know. But they might understand something like, I can probably like write a piece about what it means when your mom gets mad at you and how you feel when you have to go and when you're like sent to your room, no games, no anything like that, feeling alone in that type of moment, you know, because they don't really talk about those feelings. I've never known a 10-year-old to, you know, come up to me and be like, yeah, it's really hard. Like, they really just keep it to themselves, you know, because everything is all supposed to be happy all the time.
I know, right?
But deep down, those feelings are just pushed away. They just push those feelings away. And if it's not dealt with in childhood, then it'll come to adulthood. So, you know, you have to, when it comes to, like, younger children, I think you have to talk to them like they're still people. Like, I remember when I first joined Deep, people like Keith Miller, Trelawney Michelle, and Marquise Williams, like I said, they were like, don't call me Mr. Marquise or Miss Trelawney. Just call me Trelawney. Because, like, at the end of the day, we're just people having a conversation. And when they did that, I was like, I didn't feel right doing it at first. Honestly, it felt weird. But now I'm like, they were really just doing this just to, like, so we're, like, on equal level. Like, they're not above us, even though, like, you know, there are teaching artists and everything. They're not above us in any way because we're all having one conversation in the same room. We're all in that room for a reason, you know?
Yeah,
so
I agree with you.
That's what I do really appreciate about that.
I agree
with
you.
I got a little bit sidetracked.
No, it was wonderful. I have to do the mid-hour break, and Jayla, I'm really excited to have you on. After the break, would you mind doing a piece for us?
Oh, I don't mind at all.
Okay, great.
Got it ready right now.
Perfect. All right, so everybody, you're listening to The Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and this is my special guest today is Jayla Lawton, a.k.a. Jaybird, and here are our special station announcements.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming, and it doesn't just mean that we are a voice for the community. It also means that we are counting on the community to keep us going, and you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation, and thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. There is a State of Georgia hotline people can call with questions or if they think they may have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus. It is 1-844-442-2681. If you believe you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 or have been exposed to the novel coronavirus, please contact your primary care doctor, an urgent care clinic, or your local federally qualified healthcare center. Please do not show up at an emergency room or healthcare facility unannounced. More information can be found at dph.georgia.gov. This portion of WRUU Savannah Soundings programming is provided by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have available online ordering and curbside delivery, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 to 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
All right, everybody, we are back live on the radio today here from WRUU.org, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. I'm saying it all wrong, Jayla. You're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. I had to read that from the marquee, so we're back. You there, Jayla?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
Cool. Well, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited. I enjoyed watching your performance live and in person, and I'm really excited for our audience to be able to hear you do one of your pieces today.
Of course. So this piece, I actually titled it Menopause. And a little background about it, actually. I don't normally do background, but, you know, it is what it is. So this piece I wrote after I lost 2 poetry slams, like, back to back. And I was just feeling so... It was actually December. It was one in December, and there was one in January. The one I lost in December was against my old... We all competed against each other, the Deep Center Slam team, and I got out in the first round of that poetry slam. And that was the first time that ever happened. And I was like, dang, what is going on right now? You know, like, did I not perform it right? Was I just doing it just to do it? Did I get lazy with this piece, you know? Started asking myself all these questions. And then, you know, I just got, like, very, in my feelings, like you said, poets are very sensitive people. So,
Yes, we
Marquise
are.
convinced me to compete in another slam in January. And I got out in the first round again. And I was like, oh, my gosh, like, what am I doing wrong right now, you know? So I was like, you know what? Let me just regroup real quick and let me write this piece. Let me just be honest about this piece right now. So I titled it Menopause. What does the writer do when she feels she can no longer produce? Does she lie in her sanctuary and allow her mind to drift, underthinking her abilities to write the right way when she knows there can never be a right way? Does she continue to aim for imperfect perfection, trying not to force intimacy between body and mind, but tears and headaches are the only way she knows that she is feeling? Does she become just another muse, stiffly chained to the stage she claims to be free, not caring about opinion, but always open to critiques? She's a sensitive soul who endures tough love from herself. She wonders if her poetry has become a facade, an act with hopes to become the person she wants to be herself. But self is not fond of doubting or drowning in the things she wished she knew, because it just might not be for you. For me, the street lights come on one by one, and they dim by dawn, for she knows she must light her own path. But she can't help but wonder, who is to care for the caretaker? It is their job to nurture, to feed. Does she indirectly write her own story or speak for those who cannot vouch for themselves? Her nature, be a thief in the night and switched by day, a Gemini soul once she walks off stage, but she was born by the water. She was born to feel like you and me, so let her cry as she sheds into this new skin, accepting that not every opportunity will be a win. And she don't tell people that she's a ghostwriter. Her obituary is flawlessly executed, including everyone's voice but her own. So don't you tell her she's too pretty to feel alone, because it's been a while since she's written from the heart, since she's come as her complete self, since she stopped caring about what makes art. Thank y'all.
That was wonderful. Gemini soul, huh? Gemini soul, huh? I'm a Gemini. Are you a Gemini?
You are?
Yeah, May 22nd.
Oh, wow. I was saying Gemini, like, you know, like I have one face on stage, but once I get off, I'm a whole different person, you know?
Ah, okay. I thought maybe you were doing it because you're Gemini. But that's,
nah, I'm an Aquarius, though.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That's cool. Yeah, I feel like your poem, and of course everybody's got their own interpretation, but I feel like your poem touches so deeply with a lot of creators feel this thing called Imposter Syndrome. And
Can you define that really quickly?
Yeah. Imposter Syndrome is kind of like, well, if people only knew, they would figure out, like, I'm not this or I'm not that. Or, when you're talking about, has she lost her touch pretty much? it's like you're doing this thing and like you're not getting the accolades that you were getting before, and it's like, well, maybe I'm not as good as I used to be, or maybe my art is not what it used to be, and maybe I'm losing my touch or whatever. And but imposter syndrome is kind of like one of those things where people, they're like, if they only knew the real me, I'm a fraud, and I love how you embraced that after having a couple of hard defeats. Where you're like, wow, what happened here? You're like, what happened?
I took those to heart. I took them both to heart. Because, like we were talking before about being stagnant, I didn't realize that I was like actually doing that. Because I performed the same. I think it was the same. Was it the same piece I performed? The first time I performed when the Jaybird sang.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second time was a different piece, but I performed it in the same way I had been doing for months prior.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it kind of was on me, I guess. So I guess I needed to call myself. I need to tell myself about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, I have to do that too. Like one of the things I love how you said it was on you. That is, I feel like, the most empowering statement when you own what it is. When you take ownership of whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that's happening in your life, when you take that ownership over it and say, you know what, okay, I did that, or you know what, I'm in control of my thoughts or emotions or feelings. I feel like that's so empowering because things don't happen to you then. It's like being passive versus being active. When you're taking an active role in your life and you're like, well, yeah, I did that. I performed it the same way and that was on me, versus you could have been like, well, I performed it the same way. I don't understand what happened. Everybody else liked it that way,
Yep.
I mean,
exactly.
you could look at it you could look at the same phrase two different ways and you're like, get totally different meanings from it. And
exactly, depending on how you look at it. It's all perspective.
Well, and I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but let's just say, for example, your performance style and your cadence of the way you perform, it could have been different poems or whatever, but your style or whatever was not what they were looking for. It could have had nothing to do with you as far as your performance or anything like that. They could have just been looking for something completely different. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things out there.
That is true.
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there. I'll give you an example. Like I with this Valhalla books that I've been doing, I put out an anthology, and I've had some people review my story that I wrote in there, and one person's like, "Oh, it's brilliant. This is wonderful." Blah blah blah. Another person just recently wrote that it was rambling, like I was just rambling on the second half of the story, and that it was like the ending was expected. And I was like, well, how could we get such polar opposite endings? And I think what it is that everybody's different, and not everybody's going to want that that same, they're not going to look at it the same way, you know what I mean?
Yep. Like some people, they go in looking for like one particular thing. Sometimes they like, I don't want to say they stereotype it, but that kind of is what it comes down to. Because like I know some rappers even talk about this in their songs, or like some artists, I mean. I know this man named, I think his name is P.J. Morton, and he has a song called Claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically about him like being too like crowded by all these people wanting all these things for him. Like, you should dress this way, you should look this way, play this part. But that's not who he was. Like, they're saying all these things, like they could make your art better, but that wasn't who he was.
Oh,
they want him to fit this description. Lauryn Hill had the same thing going on. She had a song about her son, Zion. And her record label wanted her to have her son, for her to, like, get rid of her son, but she chose not to. And they're basically saying that her keeping her son would be detrimental to the rest of her art, which was not the case, because she came as who she was, and that's all that mattered. The miseducation of Lauryn Hill is still being listened to this day. So
yeah, I'll tell you what, I moved down here in '96, and that Strumming, I can't remember the name of the song, but that Strumming My Pain with His Fingers song that they redid, that was really hot when that was coming out. So I was listening to that on the radio the whole way down here from Ohio, and I just loved her voice. Just loved her voice. And I always thought it was interesting how she walked away from her career like that, but it made sense. I mean, like, I'm a family person. I would never sacrifice my family for art or anything like that. And my family is more important to me than anything in this world. And so I'm glad that she did what she did. Like Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle walked away from a huge career because they were trying to do the same thing to him. And I just love the fact that some people, and there are, I don't like the word sellout, but there are people out there that they're willing to conform to anything and everything to make, whatever. I've got to do the station ID real quick. Everybody, you're listening today to the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, with my special guest, Jayla Lawton, a.k.a. Jaybird. And this is WRUU, LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So when I hear the word sellout, I think of corporate entertainment when they say we know what the audience wants, right? We know what they're looking for, right? And then they create that, like, they've got this algorithm where they play a song so many times. Well, when the internet came around, it broke all those things. So like now it's like viral videos and, it's like memes and stuff like that people, attach to. It's not the same kind of thing. So when somebody says, well, they're looking for XYZ, but that's not them, yeah, it's not going to be them. And they've got to understand that, okay, well, if this is a corporate label or a big, like, for example, with acting, if it's a studio and they want a certain look or they want a certain style of actor or whatever, they're going to go for that. I had a friend of mine that he had signed with a big label record in Nashville, and what they did was the industry, when they have a person they want to prop up. So let's just say, for instance, XYZ artist is going to be the next big artist. Let's just say they're a musician. When the industry is like, okay, we're going to make this person the next big artist, they will sign up anybody who sounds like that person or looks like that person or is similar to that person, and they'll put them on the shelf. They'll say, okay, well, you're under contract with us, and the way the contract reads is that you can make money if we produce your records and we make, sales or whatever, but you can't go out on your own and make any kind of production whatsoever because you're under contract with us. And then they prop up XYZ person, and that person gets, pushed to the star, the star. What am I trying to say? They're pushed to the forefront of the stage or whatever. And so, like, commercialized art and music and things like that, it has a different, like, they want to sell seats, they want to sell tickets, they want to sell, merchandise. So they're gonna do that with, whoever or whomever they think is the best that can do that. Just like with writing books, a lot of times it's not even about the story; it's about who they think can sell books. So, that, I feel like when people are out there doing their thing and they say, "Nope, this is not me. This is not my art," and they reject that, it's because they can't, sell out the part of them that's like, wait a minute, this is the reason why I'm even making this music is because of this reason. I'm not just gonna cut that away from me and say, nope, that's not it.
I feel like you always have to go back to the why. Like, why are you doing this? Why did you do this?
Yeah. Like you said at the beginning of the interview, why you're doing your poetry, and your why today is probably not the same thing as it was 3 years ago.
True.
So
very true.
I really appreciate it. So next year, hopefully things will let up and be safe and that kind of thing. What do you have like planned? Are you writing any poetry, or have you been doing any new stuff lately?
I have been working on a poetry video for the first time since July of this year.
Okay.
And it is in its finishing phases right now. I'm hoping to release it next month in January. I haven't said anything. I haven't said too much about it yet.
Yeah.
So I can I'm still kind of refining it at the moment. But I'm hoping to release that and get that out, because I feel this year, frankly, it has not been the best year for productivity in poetry.
I understand that. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I went through a lull myself too. I'm like, I think a lot of people kind of went through that burnout phase too. But one of the things I love about Hollywood is that the show must go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me at least, I kind of reached a point where I was like, okay, well, what am I doing? I mean, like this whole thing is just like in a holding pattern. What am I doing? What can I do? And I'm so glad to hear that you're putting out a performance video. Where's that going to be at? On your like YouTube or something, or what?
I'm planning on releasing it on YouTube and on Instagram.
Oh, cool.
I was thinking of doing it on I forgot what the website is called, honestly. So I'm gonna just say YouTube and Instagram for right now.
Like Vimeo or something?
So, I think that was it.
Okay.
I think that was it.
Okay. Yeah. I know a lot of artists put stuff out on Vimeo.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube, YouTube's like the second largest search engine in the world. So
I'm saying everybody's on YouTube now.
Yeah, my podcast, like today's podcast, it's gone on a lot of different platforms, but I've been getting a lot of plays on YouTube, which I was surprised because
really?
I had just put it on YouTube like maybe 2 months ago, and I've been getting more plays like on YouTube than I get on any of my other platforms. And I'm like on Amazon Audible and a bunch of other places.
Your YouTube is Adam Messer, right?
Yeah, yep. So okay. I'll send you a link when we when I get it uploaded tonight or whatever too. But yeah, I think it's great to put your YouTube on there. I can't wait. And then when you get it, I'll be glad to share it and be kind of cool to listen to it. I'm excited about it.
I do appreciate that.
So, well, Jayla, I really appreciate you being on the show today, and I'm looking forward to like when we can actually do the get-togethers again. Because I think it'd be fun to listen to some poetry and to get up there and share some new stuff. And I'm always excited to see, like, I love the fact that we've talked a lot about growth this hour, because I always love seeing my friends and what they're doing, and I'm glad that you're moving forward and doing your thing.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you having me on here too, and I'm glad like growth was the main takeaway for you. And I'm hoping the people who are listening as well, especially since this is the last radio show of this year.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. I'm excited. So, well, thank you, Jayla, for being with us today. And I wish you a great new year. And I'm looking forward to seeing your new video.
Thank you so much, Adam. I wish all the same for you. Have a good one.
You too. All right, everybody, stay tuned because